Daniel Ross pushed his old sedan through the icy mountain road, his hands gripping the wheel as the snowstorm thickened around him. He had been preparing for this job interview for months, hoping to finally escape his minimum wage night shifts and the pressure of supporting his younger siblings. But when his headlights illuminated small, delicate footprints disappearing into the forest, everything inside him shifted. In that split second, Daniel faced a choice: continue driving toward the future he'd always wanted, or stop for someone who might not survive without him. His instincts made the decision for him. Stepping out into the bitter cold, Daniel followed the trail with his flashlight cutting through the swirling snow. Each footprint looked weaker than the last. His breath fogged the air, the silence around him broken only by the crunch of ice beneath his boots. After several minutes, he spotted a small shape huddled beneath a fallen pine tree. When he drew closer, he saw it was a young Apache boy, wrapped in nothing but thin clothes, trembling violently. The child's lips were blue, his eyes half open, unfocused. Daniel felt his heart break. Without wasting a second, Daniel shrugged off his jacket and wrapped it around the child's freezing body. He lifted him carefully, shocked by how light he was, as if the cold had hollowed him out. The trek back to the cabin felt endless, the storm growing harsher with each passing minute. Daniel had always thought of himself as an ordinary man, nothing exceptional, nothing heroic, but with the child clinging weakly to life in his arms, he pushed himself through the storm as if carrying the weight of the world. Inside the small cabin, Daniel lowered the child beside the fireplace and immediately stoked the flames. The room slowly filled with warmth, melting the frost clinging to the boy's hair and skin. Daniel boiled water, heated soup, and wrapped the child in thick blankets. At first, the boy barely responded, only letting out faint whimpers when Daniel touched his frozen fingers. Hours passed before he finally whispered his name, Tayson. It wasn't much, but Daniel knew the child was fighting to stay alive. The storm raged for 4 long days, trapping them inside with no way to call for help. The blizzard swallowed the roads, blocked the radio, and turned the world outside into a white wall of silence. Daniel slept in short bursts, checking on Tayson regularly, feeding him warm soup and water, keeping the fire alive even when exhaustion tried to drag him under. Slowly, the boy's breathing strengthened. He began sitting up, then talking in short sentences, speaking about his family, his tribe, and the terrible moment he became lost during the storm. Daniel listened to him with a quiet ache. The child's innocence and bravery reminded him of his own little brother, who had died years earlier from a sudden illness. That loss had scarred Daniel deeply, leaving him feeling helpless, useless, and guilty for failing to protect someone he loved. Now, looking at Tayson, Daniel felt a glimmer of something he hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. Saving this boy wasn't just an act of kindness, it was a chance to heal a wound he had carried for years. Over the next few days, Tayson's strength returned, and the cabin felt less like a lonely hideout and more like a home filled with warmth and meaning. Daniel taught him how to keep the fire alive, how to melt snow for water, and how to wrap blankets tightly to hold in heat. In return, Tayson shared stories from his tribe, stories of bravery, tradition, and the land their ancestors protected. Daniel felt honored to hear them, knowing these stories were not told lightly. Outside, the storm howled, but inside, a bond grew stronger between them. On the 4th morning, the blizzard finally eased, and sunlight spread across the mountains like a blessing. Daniel stepped outside to breathe fresh air, relief washing over him. But just as he turned back toward the door, a powerful knock shook the cabin, 3 deep, thunderous blows that echoed through the quiet forest. Daniel froze. No one ever came this far into the woods. His heart thudded in his chest as he reached for the door, uncertain of who, or what, might be waiting. He had no idea that behind that door stood the people who had been searching through the storm, and that his act of compassion would change all of their lives forever. On the 4th morning, as the storm finally broke and the Arizona mountains shimmered under a fresh blanket of sunlight, Daniel Ross felt the cabin walls relax for the first time in days. The blizzard's roar had faded, replaced by a peaceful stillness that almost felt unreal. He stepped toward the stove to reheat water when a sudden, thunderous sound shattered the quiet. Boom, boom, boom. The cabin rattled with each strike. Daniel froze in place, his breath catching. Out here, miles from the nearest town, no one ever knocked, no one even passed through these woods. His instincts screamed danger, but something deeper urged caution. He approached the door slowly, placing one hand on the handle while the other hovered near the axe leaning against the wall. He cracked the door open just enough to see the outside, and what he saw took the tension out of his shoulders in one breath. Standing in the snow were three Apache women, wrapped in traditional woven shawls, their faces carved with exhaustion, fear, hope, and days of relentless searching. Snowflakes clung to their hair like frozen tears, sparkling under the morning sun. Before Daniel could say a word, Tayson, the child he had rescued, sprang to life. He bolted past Daniel so quickly the air shifted behind him. Tears poured down his face as he ran straight into the arms of the eldest woman. She collapsed to her knees, clutching him as if she feared he might vanish again. The other two women dropped beside her, their cries echoing through the quiet forest. They touched his cheeks, his hair, his shoulders, whispering words filled with relief and prayer. It was a reunion so raw and powerful that even Daniel felt his throat tighten. The women looked up at him through trembling breaths. "Thank you," one of them whispered, her voice cracking from cold and emotion. "Thank you for bringing him back." Daniel didn't know what to say. He simply nodded, feeling warmth settle into the spaces inside him that had long been frozen. Watching them embrace the child, watching their gratitude spill freely into the air, he felt like an outsider witnessing something sacred, something larger than anything he'd ever experienced. The eldest woman rose slowly, still holding Tayson's hand. She stepped toward Daniel, each movement delicate. She placed a hand over her heart, her eyes heavy with both sorrow and gratitude. "You didn't just save a child," she said softly. "You saved an entire family. In our people's memory, kindness like this is never forgotten." Her words carried weight, heritage, culture, honor. Daniel felt them settle deep inside him, in places he didn't even know were empty until now. He swallowed hard, unable to find a response worthy of that moment. The women wrapped Tayson in thicker blankets, ensuring he was warm and safe. As they prepared to lead him home, the boy looked up at Daniel with eyes full of trust and affection. He whispered something in his native language. Daniel didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. It was goodbye, but it was also thank you, a message from a child whose life had been hanging by a thread. Daniel gave him a small nod, trying to hide the ache of letting him go. In 4 days, the boy had become more than a responsibility, he had become a symbol of hope. As the small group began walking away through the snow, their silhouettes blending into the white forest, Daniel felt a strange heaviness settle in his chest. But it wasn't sadness. It was something deeper, something awakening. He stood in the doorway long after they disappeared, letting the cold air bite at his skin. The job interview he had missed, the opportunity he had lost, the fear of disappointing everyone depending on him, all of it felt different now. Smaller. Almost insignificant compared to the life he had saved. For the first time in a long time, he felt proud of himself. When he finally stepped back inside the cabin, the fire crackling softly, Daniel understood something he had never fully grasped before. Not every lost opportunity is a failure. Not every detour is a setback. Sometimes, life redirects you towards something far more meaningful than what you were chasing. Saving Tayson had awakened a sense of purpose he didn't know he still had. And as he closed the door gently behind him, he felt it clearly. Sometimes losing one opportunity means discovering the one that truly matters. The storm outside had ended, but the storm inside him had finally begun to clear.